Welcome to the Repurpose Your Purpose podcast. My name is Aurora Minigallo and I am your host. Today it's a special episode. Every few episodes, I record one that is just me talking. So there is no interview, there is no guest, but just some thoughts I want to share with you from things I've learned during my years coaching career changers, leaders, and business owners. So today, I really want to talk about what I have learned about the process of changing careers. And of course, there's a lot. I can't capture it all here, but I really want to give you an overview and I want to invite you to listen to this from a deep place of just relaxation. I'm not trying to agree or disagree with what I say, but simply listen from a deep sense of openness and let whatever insights come to you about your own life and what you're going through. And if you're not a career changer, stick around and listen to this anyway, because I think a lot of what I'm gonna share might resonate with you regardless of where you are at in your life. Because a lot of what I'm gonna talk about, I think, can apply to different types of change and transitions. Something else I want to say is that I don't really rehearse these talks. So I have these talks, so I haven't rehearsed this. I am going to look at some quick notes, but mostly just speak from what comes to me. I find that that can be a beautiful way to communicate, and I want to invite you to come along for the journey. All right, so think of this as a little bit of my framework um, of career change, or maybe my theory of change. And it is not as linear as it might sound once I start talking about it. In other words, I'm going to tease out some aspects of the process of changing careers, and I'm going to go in a certain order. But in my experience, they don't come one after the other. Okay, they sort of like build on each other. You will go from one to the other ones. They might all happen at once. These are just ways for us to talk about something that is very deep or is very unique to your situation, and I'm trying to find a way to express in universal terms. All right, okay, enough about me here with all this introduction. Let's get to it. So let's start with the experience of knowing or feeling your career is not working for you, your job is not working for you, and yet not knowing what you want to do next. Okay. And I have a whole video, by the way, of what might keep you stuck, and I'll share that in the notes if you want to see a little bit more about the topic. So I've talked over the years to many, many, many people about this, who really called me and shared where they were at in this feeling, in this situation of career unhappiness or career change. And what I've noticed in I would say almost all cases is that the more we refuse to listen to what's telling us that that is not working, right? Like our inner wisdom that's sort of whispering, hey, this is not for you, this is not working. And the longer we stay in an environment or in a situation that doesn't work for us, and the longer we resist and try to repress that knowing, the harder it gets on ourselves. Okay, so in other words, the environment is bigger than us, and there's something that wants to move us forward, and I'll talk more about that. That's bigger than us. And so when we don't know how to be more in touch with our own experience, we get stuck more and more in this environmental situation that from the outside might be great for somebody else, might be a dream situation, but there's something that is not working for us. So it's very, very important, I think, to understand that the sooner you start accepting your feelings, and the sooner you start looking in the direction of what you might like, and the direction of change, the easier it gets to move forward. And the longer you wait, and the longer you are frustrated, unhappy, um, you know, um, I don't know, feeling like you have to put up with a lot of things, even if you deep down know this is not working for you, the more depleted you get. So most people come to me like after sometimes even years being in this situation, right? And so what happens in that case is that very often you might lose self-confidence, you might not believe in yourself, you might start developing some beliefs that nothing else out there is going to be good for you. You might even be in some financial trouble because if you wait and wait and things are not working and you're trying against all evidence to make it work, sometimes it can hit you really bad in your finances and so forth, right? So that's what I call the spiraling down, because what happens is that we are in an environment that doesn't work for us. We feel worse and worse and worse, and as we feel worse, our thinking also gets worse, meaning it's harder for us to be upbeat, to show up with what we can bring and so forth. And the more we're caught up in that spiraling down, the less we're able to take effective action. Okay, I want to say something else about this, because very often when that spiral starts happening, people then might try to address it in a way that, again, in my experience, is not super helpful. One of that, they try to fix their thinking. Like, so there's a lot of analyzing. There's a lot of like, I shouldn't think negatively. I should be thinking like this. So there's this sort of like pushing, trying to either analyze or fix or be really, really concerned about your thinking, which I think, again, there's a difference between awareness and taking care of yourself and paying some attention and getting sucked into that. You're getting sucked in that downward spiral, and the more attention you pay to it, the more while you think it's fixing it, it's actually keeping you more and more stuck. The other thing people do is they default to magical thinking. Okay, what I call magical thinking. So, oh, if I have a vision and a board, they will all magically appear. Or they spend a lot of time watching videos on manifestation, or they start thinking the abundance mindset is what's gonna get them out of the trap. Now, I should make a whole video about my issue with manifestation, but there is something that's of course important in envisioning what you want, that can be very helpful if you let's say practice gratitude during the day and you're not sucked into a constant state of feeling you're lacking things. So these things can be very helpful. The problem is that when we're down, sometimes we grab onto them a little bit too much, like literally magical thinking, okay, instead of living in the real world. So I really want to caution you, because I have seen people, and I myself, I have fallen into that downward spiral where then I spend all my time analyzing, what's happened to me and my thinking and all these things, and maybe I have some issues, and and it gets me even more down. So it's not just awareness and taking care of myself, but it gets me really down. Or I've fallen into, well, I'll just meditate a lot and I'll think about things. And although that, I have to say, many years ago I found it easier to at some point. unplugged from that stuff, right? But I think that this is really important to watch out. All right, so for some people, it's not so dramatic. Sometimes you're just unhappy, and as I said, you catch it fairly quickly and you get in action. So good for you. It's really important to catch problem quickly and tend to them quickly. But sometimes, we just don't know. We can't. It creeps up on us over time. So if you're listening to this, I just want you to know there's no judgment. I got stuck for years as well. I have experiences as well where I lost myself. And I think it's just part of the human conditions. So wherever you're at listening to this, or if you're thinking of other areas of your life, right? I want you to really hear this also with a lot of love and a lot of self-compassion, because if we could choose how to feel and act every time, well, nobody would ever have any problems, right? Why would we choose any negative feeling or problems? All right, so if you're caught in this downward spiral, however it is, right? If it's a little bit or a lot, now what you want to do is to start spiraling the opposite way, so spiraling back up. Okay. And how do you do that? Well, there's different ways. And this is where in my experience, you need all of these. And I'm going to say them now in an order, but it's not a specific order. You're going to have to, it's a back and forth, and that what comes to you. And some people need something more than others, or more time with one of these approaches more than other, and so forth. Okay. As a coach, for me, I really tune into my clients and then support them where they're at, right? Even with a group, I always like to also have one-on-one calls, at least one, so that I can support, understand each person a little bit better and support them where they're at. Okay, so what are the three approaches, big buckets? One is you really want to expand your capacity to be with your feelings. Okay, so this is, again, it's not getting caught up in your feelings, analyzing and thinking about it all the time, and it's all about your feelings. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about the fact that a lot of us, I would say probably all of us, at some point made up that, or were taught that it's just scary and too painful to let some experiences through. Okay, so it might be all feeling experiences. For most of us, it's some. Like, for example, some people are very, very uncomfortable with feelings of anger, or with feelings of power, or with feelings of even, sometimes happiness. Um, Sometimes people are very uncomfortable with feelings of sadness. Sometimes we might feel that if we let ourselves cry, if we let ourselves being down, we're gonna get caught up in this feeling forever. We'll never get out of it. And when it's actually the opposite, when you let your feelings go through you, when you don't get attached to them, you don't overly um get involved with them, but you don't stop them, you're not afraid of them, you let them be fully felt, they move through you, because that's how we're made to really go through life. We're made to have some thoughts and feelings, and they come and go, right? But when we stop ourselves from feeling, or we judge ourselves, we try to change the feeling, all this kind of stuff, we block what is a very natural process. Okay, and we interfere with the beautiful innate system we all have, that is really here for us to help us go through life. So let me give you an example of sort of blocking, what happens when you block your feelings, and also an example of overly judging your feelings and your experience. So when we block it, like let's say, I'll give you an example, right? Like that's fairly common. So let's say you got the job of your dreams and you had high expectations. And for whatever reason, once a couple of months into, a couple of weeks or a couple of months into the job, or maybe even 2 years later, I don't know, something changed. Your boss quit, you hadn't realized some red flags during the interview, and now you're on the job and you realize this is a nightmare job, it's not a dream job. Something happens. Now, you, let's say you address it, you get yourself out of it, all of that. But there's a sense of grief, right? Because now your life, at least your professional life, was derailed. Sometimes there's more at stake than professional life, like maybe your finances took a hit or something. And yes, you dealt with it, right? You moved on to the next thing, you saved yourself, you maybe struggled for a year and finally you're out of that situation, whatever it is, right? But you don't let yourself feel your feelings about it. You don't let yourself grieve for um I don't know, the pain, right? The shock, just your expectations that were thwarted, whatever it is, right? Like, so you not letting those feelings through, and I'm not saying by talking to other people, I'm just saying like crying for a weekend, or being okay, kind of being a little bit down for a few weeks, or maybe you have a lot of anger about it, and rightly so, you did not yell at anybody, you handled your transition very professionally, but you never quite let yourself, just in your own private time, like express and feel this anger. What happens is that this energy of grief or anger or whatever it is, sometimes it's a mix of everything, gets stuck within us. And then when you get to another situation that is not very good, or maybe somebody irritates you, or maybe something reminds you of that job, it gets poked. And you have all these emotions that want to come out, right? Or maybe you start feeling less because you don't even realize that innocently keeping your feelings down about what happens means you have to keep all your feelings down. So I can make there's a lot here that I can share, but essentially, like, letting our feelings pass through us is super, super important as a step. We don't realize how much we keep ourselves from even sometimes imagining what we want to do next, because we can't we just don't know that it's okay to feel our feelings. The other example that I said I was going to share with you is when we judge ourselves, right? So this is another very common thing that I see a lot. So same scenario, right? You get a job, it turns out not to be a dream job. It turns out to be a job that's really bad for you, like you don't like it, for whatever reason. It might be because you realize it's just not a good fit. It might be like it's a really bad, like legitimately, like really unhealthy place where to work. Or it might be that you discover something about yourself, that maybe you overestimated some of your aptitudes or skills in a certain field, right? Whatever it is, you're struggling, and you have judgment about that. I should be okay. I should work harder. It's my fault. I always get myself in this situation, so I'm a bad person, right? All of these sort of judgments that lack compassion and acceptance, but are in constant resistance. Sometimes that might even be from for the other people, right? Like, my boss should be like that, my colleagues should be like that, the company should be like that, and this resisting what is. Okay, so acceptance, self-acceptance, self-compassion, um, really radical acceptance, meaning, okay, things are the way they are, is not resignation, is not the same as resignation. what it is a really helpful, like the most practical way and access to actually being with what is. When we resist and we're in a conversation in our own head that things should not be the way they are, or we should not be the way we are, or our feelings or thoughts should not be what they are, we essentially like lose all power to effectively deal with what is. And it's a very common and innocent misunderstanding of how reality works. Okay, so let me repeat it again. When you accept yourself, your feelings, your thoughts, other people, situation as it is, it doesn't mean you're resigned to it. It doesn't mean like, okay, well, that's just things as they are, so that's fine, I will always be unhappy, or all bosses are bad anyway, or this is just what life gave me. No, I'm not talking about resigning yourself. What I'm talking about is that you let your experience be what it is. You let things be what they are. You're with it. You're fully present, right? That's your access to change. That's your access. If you resist, you're getting in your own way. Okay. And I'm gonna leave it like that because this can be a much longer conversation. But so one of the things to move from the downward spiral, the stuckness of not knowing what you want to do and being in a situation you don't like, to opening up space and creating that upward spiral to the next thing for you, or to a much better situation and even inner experience, is acceptance, radical acceptance. All right. And the ability to feel your feelings, not being scared of that, like self-compassion, all of that, under patience, compassion for others, even understanding that a lot of time it's not personal. Which brings me to the next part. The next part is what I call a deep understanding, like a real, not intellectual, not quote on Instagram, not sounds good in theory, but a real lived experience, feeling, connection, understanding of what I call source. Okay, what is source? Source is that part of us that is beyond our thinking, is beyond our separate identity, is beyond our conditioning, is beyond our individual quote unquote I. And it comes through us in its own unique way, but it's in everything and is everything. Okay. So no, you don't have, if the thought came to you that are you talking about God? Is this a religious thing? Like, it doesn't have to be. You don't have you I talk about this with atheists, okay? It doesn't matter. If it resonates with you as a spiritual thing or a religious thing, that's fine. If it doesn't, it doesn't have to be. That's why I'm saying this is not a theory, this is not a quote, this is not a good idea. Most people have this as a good idea. Yes, of course we're all connected. Yes, the oneness, of course. Here's my favorite quote from Rumi or whatever, right? Like, yeah, that has zero value, okay? Like, that's not helping you at that level. What helps you is that you start really getting a feeling for it. You start really realizing, oh yeah, I can rest in it. I am that. And my neighbor is that. And my cat is that. And even my boss is that. Like beyond the micromanaging that really annoys me. And it's something that the more you get a feeling of it resting, the more you open up space for something new that is beyond what you already know, something new that's beyond your conditioning, something that is peaceful and loving no matter what. It is like you're already it's already there. We just are not taught to look in that direction. We're not taught to notice when we're in it versus we're caught up in our thinking. And so it's a little bit like, if I don't do push-ups for a long time, even doing 4 hurts my arms so much, right? But I always have arms. But if I don't use them, right, like it's harder. It's a little bit like that. We gotta like have a feeling for it and notice, right? Innately, we are in that state. And naturally, we are in that state when we're not caught up in a lot of thinking from the intellectual mind, the strategic mind. So, for example, for a lot of people, it can happen that you're in nature, you're relaxed, you got nothing on your mind, you're really present, and you're naturally in that feeling of well-being. Okay, so I call it source really as a neutral word. You can call it whatever you want. Okay, and this is again a very long conversation, but I have to tell you that I found that the more somebody, it's not even the more, when somebody understands what I'm talking about, like as in like they really like see it for themselves, their ability to change careers or really grow in life as a human being in whatever they want to do exponentially increases. So it's very, very important. Now, this by itself, though, is not it's not enough. And in fact, if you get sucked into that too much, you might fall into spiritual bypass. You can look up on my blog, you can Google spiritual bypass. I talk about that. I'll probably make a video about it at some point. But I just want to caution you that again, this is not magical thinking. It's not like, okay, then I'll meditate every day and magically things will come to me. Okay, like this is why I'm saying source is very important to understand, but also you have to understand that there's a part of you, there's a survival mind that will always try to get you away from experiences that are scary and from what it perceives could be a danger to you, and will try to trap you, one way or the other, either by not feeling your feelings, by judging everything and yourself, or by saying, yes, I just, I'll meditate my way to the next thing, right? Like, very important to understand. This is why I'm sharing all 3 of this. You need all 3, okay? All 3 practices or all 3 understandings, all 3 approaches. The third one is you gotta take action. I mean, there is no getting away from this one, okay? It's one thing I've really seen with the people I work on anything. And the ones that have a bit of a bias for action, meaning they tend to understand and be more in action, do better. Now, there are some limits. You don't want to just like, work hard, do things, like take huge risks. I mean, you can get out of balance that way as well. But essentially, nothing happens in the real world if you don't take steps in the real world. What does that mean? It means that you understand there's some discomfort in doing things, and that the discomfort will go away once, it becomes more of a habit, like my push-up examples, right? If I haven't done push-ups for a long time, I never want to do them. And then my arms, hurt for a few days and so forth. But once I get back in the rhythm, then I can do a bunch of them every day, and it's actually fun and I feel better, right? So it's the same thing with having informational interviews, applying for jobs, going for interviews and having, discomfort and fear and learning how to interview or how to negotiate salary. If you are a business owner, it's so exciting, but it's so scary, right? You have to deal with legal, you have to deal with bookkeeping and accounting, you have to learn marketing, you have to learn sales, right? Like there's all this stuff. Take action. The feelings come back. See, it's like you can be uncomfortable, it's okay, right? I always say don't freak yourself out. So there's all sorts of things like this that I feel like action is very, very important. And ideas come through action. In other words, one of the things that keeps people stuck, two things that keeps people stuck very often. One is perfectionism, thinking you can only do something if you can be the best, if you can do it perfectly, all this kind of stuff. Well, that will keep you stuck. Nobody gets good by not taking action. Okay, you cannot get good in your head, you cannot get good without being in action in real life. And very often perfection is a myth. Nobody's perfect, nothing is perfect, very few things are perfect, and even when they are, usually it's because of a lot of iteration and trial and error and so forth. The other part is that you want to have the whole thing figured out before you take action, as sort of like a way to protect yourself and not take risks. Like, well, I only, start a business if I know for sure that 10 steps I have to take, and I know for sure how it's going to make me this much money and so forth. While it's good to manage your risk, while you can plan, you can prepare, you can do research, I absolutely would encourage you to keep your eyes open and not just jump into something. The truth is, you don't know until you're in. So think about dating, right? Okay, so first date, it's like, okay, maybe I'm gonna like this person, let's see, right? Then you're dating, you sort of get to know each other, right? If you want to have a good dating experience, you're not planning the wedding and the kids on date one, or maybe if that's in your head, that's just, your imagination. And then progressively things make more sense, okay, now we like each other, so we want to get more serious. Now we're more serious, we're going to talk about, moving in together or getting married or whatever, or, whatever the relationship for you, whatever relationship you want to have. So this is not a relationship podcast. But my point is, you wouldn't, if you go on a date one, and you think I'm going to go on date two, only if I know this is going to end in the exact same way I want it to end, you're going to be single for a very long time. Okay, or you're gonna end up dating somebody with expectations that are probably going to be thwarted. Okay, or you're gonna be in a super controlling mode, and even if it's the right person, they're gonna at some point get very frustrated by it, right? So most of us understand this with dating. We understand, like, okay, well, you gotta go through, you gotta know the person, you gotta see how you feel, and you have to take some risks, right? It's the same with business. It's the same thing. You gotta be in the game, you gotta be in business to see how the business go, to have ideas what to do with the business, to learn from your clients and so forth, right? And here's the good news and bad news: it never ends. All right, even companies, like, actually, let me say it this way, especially companies that have been around for decades, they're constantly learning, and learning by doing and trying and failing and trying something new and so forth. And the reason why they can stay in business for that long, it's because they don't get attached to only one way of doing things without being open. Okay, so very important to be in action. You're not going to even be able to see things until you're in action. All right, so wow, this is a lot. Let me summarize a little bit of what I've been saying, okay? Because it's a lot of things. The first thing I talked about is like the process of career change and how it feels when you're not happy, something's not working for you, and how important it is to pay attention to that and not repress it or be afraid of feeling or get overly attached and involved with those feelings and thoughts, but to be with things as they are and to let yourself feel what needs to be felt. Okay, as we are with things as they are and we let our feelings and emotions through us, we can now open up space for action. So these are the first two things I talked about. The third thing I talked about is also the importance of really having a real feeling, a real understanding, a lived experience of when we're in source, meaning we can rest beyond our thinking and our conditioning, and being something that or being connected to that part of us that is much smarter than anything else that our intellectual mind can really see or think, and that is connected to everything else. And then the last thing I talked about is the importance of being in action, to take action, and beware of perfectionism and having to know how it ends, right? Because that's not real life. That's not how things work. All right, let me quickly look at my notes, because here I was just sharing all these things as they were coming to me. Um, all right, so a couple of other more let's say practical things. Okay. Um, One is that if you're looking to change careers and you're not sure what you want to do next, it's very, very important to open yourself up to what's out there with the understanding that you don't know. You don't even know what you don't know. Okay, so be curious, and you'd be surprised how open some people can be when you simply share, yeah, I'm not sure, I'm curious, what's your experience, at this job, or what are some of your thoughts on this career. Like, people are very understanding. Like, we all have been in situations where we were not sure what to do next, right? And if some people are not understanding, oh wow, that's their opinion, you move on and look for people that are open and understand. The second thing is to watch out for your own thinking about the outside world. And this is where I said at the beginning, I'm going to have a link to the video, What Gets Us Stuck. Very often we have some ideas of what's out there, okay, quote unquote, and we don't even realize these are ideas. For example, we have preconceived notions about certain careers, certain types of jobs, certain environments, right? You'd be surprised how well, let me say this. I have a client, for example, that one time told me she really realized that the more she resisted something, sometimes that was a clue for going in that direction, right? Now, this is not a rule. Sometimes the resistance tells you, no, that's not for you. But it's funny how so many of us sometimes end up in careers that we would have never considered. Like when I changed from photography and I got into marketing, one of the biggest things I had to get over was my preconceived notion about marketing, right? I was really enjoying that as a business owner. I was learning a lot about it on my own. I talked to everybody about it. I had never thought that my identity, could ever even look in that direction. And then when I thought about marketing, disconnected from my experience, but sort of my, prejudice essentially about it, um, was like, it's gonna be these horrible people manipulating others, and I'll have to do horrible things. And look, there are some horrible people, and there's a lot of manipulation, and you can definitely use marketing in a very negative way. But I found that I could also do it in a way that was in alignment with my values, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, and it was a very viable next career. But I had to get out of my own thinking. All right. So really being open to the outside, exploring, being curious, so important. I can't emphasize it enough. Last, but again, this is not last, right? These are all, like, you'll see they all intertwine in your career change process. Is you need to start paying attention to what you're good at. When we are in the downward spiral and when we are in environments we don't like, we start focusing way more than it's helpful to what we lack. Oh, but I don't have the degree, I don't have the experience, I don't know how to do, X, Y, and Z. I don't have the network, I live in a city that doesn't have, like, we get so involved in our own head with everything we lack. Well, here's the thing. Most of us have a gigantic list of what we lack. Okay. And then, you can add to that the sort of like, I'm too old for this, I'm too young for this, so and so can do it because they have a supportive family that don't. So and so can do it because they don't have kids to worry about and they can do whatever they want, and like, we can keep going, and most of us will find more and more and more things that we lack. There's no answer in that direction. There's none. You have to start thinking more and more about what you already have and can bring to the game. And from that, you can then also sometimes be like, yeah, it would be really nice for me to, learn more about this, or I really would like to develop this part of, I don't know, my personality, or, it would be nice for me to have a supportive partner. So maybe part of my career change is also being open to receive support. Or maybe it's like, you can find inspiration from your family. I mean, there's all sorts of things, but you have to move from a focus on what you lack to a focus on what you have and can contribute. Very important. And then within that focus, yes, of course, we want to grow, we can better, we can learn more things. All right. Now, to wrap this up, I know I've given you a lot. I would really recommend you listen to this podcast episode more than once, and you let what comes to you come to you. I also want to invite you to get in touch, right? I'm Aurora at repurposeyourpurpose.com. You can go on my website and you'll find my contact information. You can send me an email if you have questions, or if you have some feedback or thoughts about what you just heard. I love hearing from people. But my invitation is that you really understand that changing careers is not a goal, it's not a destination, it's a process. And the moment you embark on that journey, okay, is to the point is the journey. The point is to understand that it's through that process of changing careers that something new comes through you, that you grow, that is the point. And the new job, the new business, the new voice you might develop, anything that comes up is the culmination of that process. And the more you can see that, and see that even if it's painful, even if, right now it sucks, okay? I understand for some of you listening to this, it sucks. I understand. But the more you understand that it's the point is going through that, and then that's the transformational, that's where the transformational real magic happens. The more you understand you are already doing it. You're already doing it. So listen to this podcast again, journal, go for a walk, see what comes for you, and then move in these directions. Okay. um the purpose of working with somebody like a coach, like with me, what I do with clients, is because very often it's difficult to do things just on our own. We're too close to, our own thinking, essentially. And a skilled coach will really help you um, open up space that by yourself you might be able to, but in my experience it's just not possible to do it all on your own. Okay. So I have, of course, I do one-on-one coaching. I have groups sometimes, and I have now online workshops and events twice a month. At the moment of that I'm recording this podcast, I don't know when you listen to where I will be. But in other words, get in touch, okay? Get the support you need, and trust that going through some time in life where we need to change is just part of being human. All right. Check out repurposeyourpurpose.com, and I'll see you next week with another episode of the Repurpose Your Purpose podcast.